In today's episode, we are covering art studio must-haves. These are things in my art studio I use every single day, and they help me so much get into that creative flow. My hopes for this episode today is to maybe inspire some of you creatives to use some of these things in your studio and see how quickly you can get into your creative flow as well.
Thank you for tuning into My Day on Canvas podcast by Summer Silvery. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This podcast is available to stream on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. All links are in the description of this episode, including my art shop, artbysummersilvery.com.
So first things first, I must have a clean art studio. It must be clean, it must be organized before I start creating. And it's weird because as soon as I start creating, there is a ginormous mess. But there is something about starting fresh and clean and organized and not having weird messes or unorganized items in a different corner from past creations that I've done. I get to start fresh. That is something that is absolutely important. It is number one. When I walk into this art studio, it's got to be clean. And if it's not, it will be cleaned before anything creative goes down in here. The second thing that I must have is art. I must have art surrounding me in my art studio. A lot of the art that I have hanging up is my own art from past projects that I've done and stuff like that. And it's cool to see where I've been and how much I've evolved since then. And sometimes I just like creating art specifically for decor in my art studio. It's good practice and I get to make custom pieces for myself, which is pretty cool. I also have old drawings and old pieces of art that I've framed and taken out of drawing journals and stuff like that. So I've kind of repurposed my old art and put it on the wall, and I love my maximalist wall that I have in here. But I have to be surrounded around art. It makes me feel so good. Art and bright colors and paint, those are things that get me into the creative flow. Ooh, I can do this better. Let me try this style again, but elevated because I know better. Things like that kind of go through my head, and I get good ideas with the color palettes surrounding me in the room. The third must-have in my art studio is a ton of different sized blank canvases. I'm talking 5x7 all the way up to a 48x60 canvas. And the reason being is I never know what mood I'll be in when the creative flow strikes. I don't know if I want to work with a large canvas. I don't know if I want to work with a small one. Do I want to work more on details and have this tester palette where it's just this 5x7 canvas panel and I can test all I want and try all these little things and these techniques? Or do I just want to go big with a 48x60 and fling some paint on it and get going? It's always good to have different sized canvases around because you never know what mood will strike, and you want to be prepared for it at all times. The fourth thing that I must have in this art studio is my iPad Pro. I do a lot with that baby. I make GIFs. I make my own custom GIFs for my social media. I make my thumbnails on my iPad Pro for this podcast on my YouTube channel. And I also pre-plan some of my abstract art pieces if they are large canvases. I can pre-plan them by adding layers, moving layers, and erasing things, messing with different color palettes and stuff like that. And then I will have layer by layer what I need to do to bring that to life on canvas. So my iPad Pro is definitely a must-have in my art studio. The next item that I consider a must-have is my headphones. I need to have my headphones. I love to wear them while I'm painting. I love to wear them before I'm painting, preparing for it, getting in the mood for it, meditating before I start painting or creating. I love to have headphones, and they've got to be noise-canceling headphones, so everything else kind of just disappears and I'm in my own little world. And some other little accessories as my final must-haves in my art studio are candles. I must have a candle or some sort of incense lit in my art studio when I am in here. It helps me get in that creative flow, and I also just find it very cozy. Something else is affirmation cards. I like to meditate before I start creating. That is part of my morning routine that I have when I'm trying to get in the zone with everything. I like to start the day with a positive intention, and if I can pull an affirmation card and remind myself of that, then I know I'm going to have a a good day. The other little things are pens and pencils and Sharpies. I need to have like every color available to me of the pens and the Sharpies. I like to have pencils around because I like to sketch and I like to doodle and I like to create little things before creating bigger things on canvases, more permanent things. So I like to have those things around me as well. So I just want to say really quick that the art studio that I am currently in is a spare room in the house. And I feel so grateful to finally have a room, a space that's mine, specifically for art. I have never ever had that before. Whenever I was doing digital art, I was in and out of coffee shops all the time. I didn't really have a routine other than buying a coffee and sitting at a table close to an outlet. And as far as painting, I would always have a big tote bag and a box, and it would have all of my art supplies in it. And I would either be painting outside or I would be painting in whatever room had space at the time. I never had any of my art sitting out, my art supplies sitting out. None of it was sitting out. And I feel so grateful that I'm able to even talk about must-haves in my art studio, because that wasn't a thing last year or the year before or the year before or the year before. And to be able to have sort of a routine with the things that I have in here feels amazing. I feel very fortunate to be able to have must-haves, and I do not ever take advantage of that whatsoever. These are things that help light me up in my creative world and get me going a lot faster than what I had before. Because before me getting in the flow was me undoing boxes and finding the right paints and finding the right art supplies and remembering where I had put the things at, and then setting up a space so I don't get paint anywhere because it's not a proper place to actually paint. It's just where I had room at the time. I feel so good about where I am now and where all my things are, how they're organized, how I can have a clean space. It's designated for me and my work. It's just something that I do not take lightly, and making this episode just validates even more that I am where I'm supposed to be, and I feel very grateful for that. Before I wrap this episode up, I want to ask you guys a question. What are your must-haves in your art studio? What are things that help you get into your creative flow a lot quicker than if you didn't have those things? I want to thank you guys for joining me on another episode of My Day on Canvas. I will meet you guys at the next one.